Hello, everyone. We've got a special episode today because it's Friday, and these usually don't happen on Fridays. So why not have a fun special episode about the topic of second shooters? And
Mm.
I have my friend McKaylah here with Cyrus Creative, who is going to talk all about this topic with me. And there is probably going to be some feelings about what we are going to be sharing today.
Yeah.
But we are also in the mindset of being professionals in this industry. So there's going to be very little fluff when it comes to the topic of today's conversation because of some of the situations we face personally and just the expectations, and even we're also going to cover some of the good parts of having a second shooter,
Mhm.
but just kind of going over just for second shooters in general, why it's important to have certain expectations so we can avoid the horror stories that we are going to share today. How are you doing, McKaylah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, doing good. I am really excited about today's episode, and I know you are as well.
Yes, so much to cover. I feel like this could possibly go on for hours, but we'll
It
try
could.
to narrow it down.
Yeah, we'll do our best to keep it nice and short and sweet for you guys, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of fun too. Like before we kind of get into what the some of the challenges have been, what we do want to like kind of acknowledge that second photographers are so incredible to have for a wedding day, right? I mean, like
Mhm.
it's so beneficial to the couples, to us, that second photographers show up and are able to provide such great perspectives and really are just such a beneficial backup, you know,
Yeah,
for
added
certain things.
insurance. That's how I always tell it to my couples. Added insurance on your wedding day.
It is so true. Like, and it's so fun to be able to use them so strategically because they are real professionals in this industry as well. I'm like, because I don't know about you, but I've got standards for my second photographers.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not somebody that's like, hey, I just picked up a camera. Can I shoot with you?
No,
Nope.
and I'm not just asking, a family member to come do this,
No.
which I have heard that happens sometimes. But no, there's definitely standards involved. If you're hiring a professional photographer to cover your wedding, the whole, team that's covering your wedding, they're professionals.
Oh
They
yeah.
know what they're
Oh yeah.
doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't know what your standards are, but like they have to like provide me a list of the equipment that they're using. They have
Mm,
to provide me some full galleries that they've shot themselves, or some of the example work that they're able to show edited. So I know there's consistency. They
yeah.
have to provide me client testimonials, so I know that they provide a good experience
Oh,
to other people. Like, yeah, and it's like those are like selling points too to like
yeah.
couples being like saying like I take this seriously. You're investing into something so important, so I want to have these standards in place for my business, so that way then when they're showing up, like the couple has just such peace of mind knowing like they're also a real professional photographer.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that whole the client testimonial bit because I mean that's something I've never considered doing, but that is huge because oftentimes the second photographer, at least in when I'm shooting a wedding and I'm utilizing a second photographer, they're often with the groom and the groomsmen alone,
Yeah.
and I'm not overseeing that. They're
Oh
with them
yeah.
alone, reflecting my brand.
You
Um,
want it to be reflected good.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I
Right.
try to use second shooters that I've worked with in the past, just so I have that peace of mind. But that's not always the case because, as you know, it's difficult to find second shooters right now.
Yeah, right.
It's really
Because there are
hard.
so many incredible photographers in our area that are booking up themselves, which is
Hmm.
so great. But it's also like, man, I need you.
I know. Like, where did you go?
Stop doing so good.
No, it is awesome that to see people like maybe someone that you were utilizing last year as a second photographer, like they're so booked up the next year that
Yeah, it's so
that they
cool.
can't second for you anymore. That's awesome to see.
And I like even like give them the praise for that. I'll be like, I have loved seeing you grow. I've loved seeing you just thrive and like just have that confidence knowing like you are doing so good. But
Yeah.
if you also have some of these dates available coming up for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love for
Please.
you to come back right. I know. It's like sometimes I feel like even inflation hurts a little bit. Like, oh, I gotta like
Yeah.
probably up my my rates, and I have, because I also want to show value in them too. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I mean definitely. It's I always am. I'm always asking my fellow photographers like, "What's your second rate? What's your second rate?" Because I mean, I have had to go up significantly from 2-3 years ago,
yeah,
and that's just inflation. I mean, that's to be expected. Our rates have gone up, so why would
right,
our second photographer rates not go up? And we expect so much of them too. You know?
right. Yeah, I think I was like thinking originally like $25 an hour is
Oh
totally fine.
my
Like when I first like had to get a second shooter, and I was like, oh, that's actually like really, I don't know, terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, you've worked with me before. I've worked with you before.
yeah.
We both expect a lot of our seconds. I mean,
Oh yeah.
they're
Oh
running
yeah.
around a lot, and it's great. It's great experience and awesome to have them there. So I just respect them and try to pay them accordingly. You know.
Yeah, right. They're like, I'm working really hard here. Like, why am I being paid garbage?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's not. It is true. It is true. We got to show value in our second photographers. I will say too, there is times where it's nice to be a second, because then you show up, you shoot, hand over the SD cards, and peace. You are done with that wedding.
Absolutely. And I always tell my seconds like number one rule is just I want you to get creative. Like I as the lead photographer have I mean as you know like our brains are in so many different directions on a wedding day. We're coordinating everything, we're making sure everything's going to plan, going according to the timeline and bride's looking good. Like everything is in our heads at the same time. So we
Yeah.
can't necessarily always get those creative shots. Like we're just making sure we're getting the basics first. Like let's get
Yes,
those first. And sometimes you even struggle to have time to get those. So
it
I
is
tell
true.
my seconds like, hey, if you have a creative shot and you see that creative angle or something that's I mean, always compliment my angles, like never get the same shot I'm getting.
Yes,
Um,
right.
but just have fun and get creative because that's gonna add those in their gallery and just really add to it and complement my work.
And sometimes that's like some of the couple's favorite pictures too,
Oh,
is those different
absolutely.
perspectives, and they love it.
And
Just
that's
adds
why I love
depth
being a
to
second so much too, just like you do. Like, because it's that
it.
time that you actually get to be creative and your brain's not focusing on a million different things. You're focused on
Yeah.
what's in front of you.
Yeah, the
You know?
brain's not as fried as
Yeah. Yeah.
being the lead.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, we do value second photographers so much. But what we want to do is take some time to share some stories that we've endured, and to really, and the reason we want to share these stories, we're going to share some of our own, and then we're going to share some that we found online. Because why not? Because the online stories are usually even more fun than our own. The reason we want to share these stories is because we want to show like why we have such high expectations for our second photographers. And if you are a second photographer, this is what you, in a sense, should be doing. I mean,
Mhm.
every photographer has their own standards for it, but we really believe that high standards create a high level experience for those who we are serving, our
Yeah.
couples. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kick it off.
Go for it.
And like we I also want people to understand too that like this is a lot of like just from the learning process of being a photographer. Like you sometimes face these situations without even thinking that they would
Mhm.
happen, and then you have to then incorporate that into your standards for your second photographer. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to name the photographer or the wedding out of safety for them. But
Respect.
there's this one wedding, and this photographer is incredible. Like they are so great. They're such a like wonderful human being, and their work is phenomenal. However, during this wedding, it was specifically during the ceremony, the wedding party is all up, lined up at the front of where the ceremony is taking place at the altar. And this was a outside wedding, and all of a sudden, like, so the bridesmaids were like kind of like a nice like little bit of a curve out, just like you like. The
Hmm.
groomsmen were a little bit more staggered in, were like into the ceremony space, so it wasn't like even looking. But you just leave it alone, right? You
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was leaving it alone. However, my second photographer thought it would be okay to go up during the ceremony and start pushing the groomsmen back.
during the ceremony, like
while the
ceremony's
ceremony is taking
already in action.
yeah, the ceremony is taking place. And all of a sudden I see her going up. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now?
Oh no.
I'm like in my mind, I'm like, how do I apologize to this couple at some
Yeah, I
point?
mean that's just like that's speaking into like the manipulation that us photographers tend to, push on a wedding day, which is just
Just
it's
let it
not a photo shoot.
no, let it be. It's
It's
okay.
not a
Like
photo shoot. It's
that's
not a
not the
photo
most
op.
important picture of the fact that they're completely even. Like maybe they wanted to stay a little farther away from the pond that had an alligator sign there.
Yeah, that's
Like I totally get that. So like honestly, when I talk with my second photographers for in that regard, is I say like just capture the different angles of the ceremony. Don't worry about how it flows. I really just want you to focus on the people that are watching, especially like parents and
oh
grandparents
yeah.
and so on, or catching different angles, but don't touch anybody. Don't
No.
touch anybody. It was so frustrating. But yeah, so that
Mhm.
was the last time that they were going to second shoot for me. Um,
That's too bad.
yeah.
I mean, I see that in so many scenarios too, though. Just, I mean, and that's probably an entire other podcast you could have is just photographers completely like making a wedding day a photo op
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
it's their
This
wedding day. People
style
are going
style
to do
shoot.
what people do, and your job is to capture it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
mean, during
exactly.
portraits, yeah, like make sure the bride is in the most flattering angles and things like that. But like, you're not going to interrupt the ceremony for something.
I was so mad. I was so mad.
Oh,
I was like, "What are you doing?" I really wanted to just like grab their arm and just yank them back and be like, "Leave."
I could just picture your face getting beat red and you're like
Oh, it
biting your
was
lip, like,
it was so rad. But they drove with me, so I couldn't just send them home.
Yeah,
I held it in, kept a smile on my face, like everything's still okay.
that's tough. I have to say though, I started out I mean, I second shot weddings for a local photographer, and he was like a very traditional photographer. He was, in his 60s. He's been doing weddings
Oh
for
wow.
since he was in his 20s, like old school. But I learned so much from him. And I probably had so many of those moments that you're talking about right now. I mean, not that moment specifically, but I remember him like saying, McKaylah, what were you thinking? Like what were you doing? Why were your settings like that? But that's another reason second shooting is so important in your growth process too.
Yep.
Like, yeah,
Yep.
we try to get the most professional you can, but also think of it as you're learning, like you're learning from this person. There's always opportunities to learn from anyone, even if they're more seasoned than you, less seasoned than you. There's always an opportunity to learn.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I've had plenty of those types of cringy moments that are very questionable, but it
uh,
was so important for my growth. And I was so
Absolutely.
happy and thankful that he was able to tell me, like, this is a no. This is an absolute no in the wedding industry. This is a yes. Or like, you did great with this. But yeah, very important for my growth, I know.
That's awesome. Yeah, but yeah, we learn by doing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm sure you've got some stories too yourself for your
Yeah. I mean,
second photography situations.
I know you have too, but like I've had so many incredible second photographers, like especially the past couple of years, like just they're incredible. If anything ever happened to me on a wedding day, I know that they could fully take over for me and run the wedding day like I would run it.
Yeah.
Not run it, but photograph it, take lead where needed, and things like that. I'm not running a wedding day. Um, but I would say the biggest pet peeve of mine, especially recently, and just, I mean, in our generation, I think maybe it's a generational thing, but is the commitment piece of it. Like,
Mm,
I grew up as an athlete. Like, my parents were like, if you're signing up for this sport or if you're committing to doing this, you're following it through. If something better comes along, like you're not skipping practice, you're not skipping a game, you're seeing it through. You're committing to be part of that team. And I take that into the, industry, like into as a professional as well. Like, if I'm signing up, if I'm committing to second shoot for this person on a wedding day, um, I'm committing. If I'm getting
Yeah.
an inquiry for that day after the fact, sorry, I'm booked. Like it
Yep.
stinks. But in my opinion, if you're hoping to get something better on that wedding day, if you're hoping to book a wedding on that wedding day, don't commit. Don't commit at all from the
Absolutely. I
beginning.
100% agree. Yeah, I had a photographer who did sign their second photographer contract with me,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically reached out, similar situation. They're like, "Hey, I just got an inquiry for a wedding on the same day I committed to your second photographer." I was like, "Hey," I was like, "That's great. Like very happy for you." I was like, "But just to let you know, I have a one strike rule. You back out once with me, then
Mm-hmm.
I can't trust you again."
Exactly. I'm the same way.
Yeah, and I was like,
Absolutely.
I can't risk it. I'm like, this is a reflection of my business. If it's something where I'm gonna then have a hard time finding someone else to second shoot for me, then that's just it's just reality of it that I can't take that chance.
Yeah.
So, and they understood. They said like, they'll keep me updated and stuff. And I was like, all right, well, you need to let me know within like a week.
Yeah.
um,
I've had very similar, yeah, pretty much same exact thing happened to me. And it was just, and it just took me by surprise. And I was just kind of, because being someone that's so committal, like I'm like, how could someone do that? Like you
yep.
commit to something. And also I always ask, I'm like, every time I hire a second photographer, I'm always like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because if
Right.
I'm putting you down for this date, like I'm putting you down for that date. And unless you're sick or obviously if an emergency happens or something, like that's totally different. But if something better comes along, you're not going to book something else. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I
just,
know you're right because it's a professional commitment. You
yeah.
sign a contract, like you're committed to it, and you're right. Like respectfully, you should never back out. You
Hmm.
know, and that's like I love your point too. You're saying like if you prefer to wait for something for yourself, then
Yeah.
don't commit to it at all, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like just be honest and transparent about that up front. Like
Hmm.
maybe then like you still need somebody down the road, and they didn't book a wedding on that date, and then you can get them then. But
Yeah.
yeah, I absolutely agree that it's so important to understand that committing as a second photographer is really important and respectful to the primary photographer on the wedding day.
Yeah. And I think I've even like you've reached out to me on a lot of for a lot of dates and I'm like, I don't know, I'm still waiting. Like I'd still like
Yeah,
to book something on that date. And you never take offense to it. And I would
no.
never take offense to that. You're
He's like,
always
of
just like
course I want you to get another
and
wedding. Like,
I always say like, but if I don't book anything and you're still in a, looking at the time, reach back out
yeah,
and we'll see. So yeah,
that's all I
just
need. That's all I need to hear.
and honestly, it's just the respectful thing to do. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to hurt your feelings. I'm just being upfront and honest with you to prevent, me feeling resentful that I committed to something and then something better came along. And then, yeah.
Hmm. Right. It's almost like just mitigating any potential issues. So
Yeah,
it's
for
just
real.
to be
Yeah.
transparent and honest up front. It's not a
Hmm.
complicated thing to do, but I think it's so hard. A lot, I'm a people. I used to be a really bad people pleaser. Like I,
Oh, I am.
in a state where like I always did everything to like ensure it made people happy, even though it wasn't the right decision.
Yeah.
However, after growing and maturing as a business owner and a person, I learned that that wasn't the best route to take all the time. So,
Yeah.
uh,
It can be tiring, right?
oh my gosh, yeah, and then it's like just more stress.
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, I think
Feel that.
from what we've talked about so far, it's so important to just be respectful on the actual wedding day itself. Like, just let the day unfold as it is. Don't worry
Hmm.
about things being perfect. As a second photographer, like let the lead just guide you in what you need to do, and
Hmm.
then also just be respectful in when they reach out to you to shoot. Like if you feel like you want to wait, just tell them like, hey, I'm still like trying to
Yeah.
maybe book a wedding that day. And like you said, I love it how you say it to me all the time, is that if you still are looking for someone by this date, like maybe like a few months out,
Yeah.
reach out back to me, because the likelihood of someone reaching out for a 3 month span of a wedding planning time
Yeah, yeah.
is
I
not
mean
as
that's
likely.
when it happened to me in the past though. It was like this person was booking last minute weddings and then so all of a sudden I was dropped. Like it was like, "Oh, do you
uh
mind?" And I'm like, "Well, Yeah, I do mind. But
Right, right, because you're putting me in a predicament here.
yes. And it was an out of town wedding too, which
Oh,
is, like it's
it's
so hard to find
harder.
second photographers for out of town weddings. So hard.
So
So
annoying.
yeah, just an added layer to that. Just commit, people. Commitment.
Yeah.
I know our generation struggles with commitment, but
But
ugh,
I promise you, in the end, it's better. It's going to look better for you,
yes.
and just the relationship with other people in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, all right. Well, now I've got some fun ones to read about second shooter horror stories
Mm. Let's hear it.
because people love these.
I've never looked up on Reddit, but this is fun.
Oh, it's so fun. I do it sometimes if I just need a mental break.
Make yourself feel a little bit better about
Yes.
yourself.
Yep. Yep. It's so good. All
Let's
right,
hear
let's
it.
see. Oh, so this one says, I've had a lot of bad experiences. One of the most bummer ones is when a second got slur level wasted. Pretty embarrassing when someone representing your brand is grabbing a glass of wine and a signature cocktail from the bar simultaneously during the reception, with 2 to 3 more glasses of wine to follow. The irony is that this person is the best damn second shooter I've ever had and got exactly
Oh,
the shots I needed them to.
oh no.
Oh, that's hard because you're like, crap, they did a really good job, but they were wasted at
Yeah.
the same time. Moral of the story.
I I
I mean,
have had a second drink, try to drink on a wedding day, and I was like, sorry that like I don't allow that like
yep.
with my company, you know. And they were fine with it, but
Yeah.
everyone runs their businesses differently. But getting wasted,
Yep. It's and it's so funny too because like I'm someone that like I play better golf when I have a couple drinks in, you know. So
oh,
sometimes,
absolutely.
but like not while you're being paid to work an event.
No.
Oh my gosh, that's got to be so frustrating too. Because could you imagine like your second gets absolutely trashed and is like falling over, but their shots are really good. you
Hey,
know,
it must have just like enhanced their creative
yeah,
juices.
it really just chilled them out and like. But yeah, still don't don't do that on a wedding day.
Mhm. And then also they have to drive home.
Oh, also true. Like it's
I mean,
almost
unless
like a
they're, I
liability
guess
thing,
around here you'd have to drive home, not everywhere, like not in the city or something, you know.
right?
But still, jeez.
Oh my
Your
gosh.
reflection, that's going back to as a second photographer, you are a reflection of the main photographer's brand.
Yep.
And that's you have
Yep.
to always keep that in mind as far as like your professional attire, your the way you communicate with the couples, the way you're a professional. You have to act like a professional and compliment the main photographer's brand.
I 100% agree. You are because when you sign that contract, you are committing to working for that company
Mm-hmm.
specifically. It's a contracted based agreement. I mean, maybe you have second photographers on your actual team, but you're right. You are a representation of your brand. I always remember like my coach in high school for basketball. He's like, everything that you do is a representation of our team.
Oh,
So the
absolutely.
decisions to make, the choices that you make is a representation of our team, like on the court, off the court,
Mm-hmm.
however, or wherever you are. So, and I'm like, that was always like a really good, like, thing, like kind of ingrained into me. So that's why,
Yeah.
like, I always like to make sure when I'm second shooting for someone else, I'm representing who they are. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so good. Yeah, so true.
That's great advice. That's really, and see, we learned so much. I feel like you and I both growing up as athletes, like we learned so much from
Oh gosh,
that
yeah.
we carry into our professional life. Like that's,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
being on
huge.
any type of team or
Yeah.
like a group of doing anything, like it could be chess team, it could be cheerleading, it could be sports, it could be the mock trial team, the debate team.
Mhm.
You see, I didn't even know the right term because I didn't do that.
That wasn't you.
it
You
was
were you weren't a mathlete.
I well, I was a mathlete. I was not on
You
a
were. You were a mathlete.
I was. That was
Oh,
the
I love
only
that.
subject I was good at in high school that involved thinking.
Wow.
But yeah, when it came to like the other subjects, oh, I had to work my what off. Um, but yeah, like I think it is so important. You're representing someone else, and like you
Mhm.
have to remember that.
Mhm.
Oh, here's a fun one. I have a good one. A few years ago, a second shooter kept disappearing to his car for 20 to 30-minute increments. I kept thinking it was strange, but I was also too busy to go looking for him. I had to work. Eventually, he's gone for an hour and finally comes back in the reception after missing some key shots. I
Mhm.
confront him and he tells me my girlfriend missed me too much to leave, so she's been in my car this whole time waiting for me. I'm like, okay, but you can't keep missing this wedding. I'm paying for you. Eventually, dinner rolls around, and he comes back in with her to fix her a plate.
Oh my
Imprison
god.
his girlfriend to like feed her dinner at a wedding. It's like
Okay, well there's
I'm like, dude, what do you think this bride and groom are going to think? What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh
okay,
my
well
gosh.
that's a whole other
Yeah, and like the
topic.
key to that one is like they just missed key shots, like important shots.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. First of all, it sounds like you have a very like cleany girlfriend.
Yeah,
Like,
there's some issues, relational
why
issues.
right? And why would they just chill in your car? That's just weird.
There's oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I can't imagine like that being a thing. Like maybe like you have to go to your car to actually get something for your equipment. It maybe you forgot, but not because you have a cleany individual in your life. Oh my gosh, that's
Wow. Yeah,
oh
that's something.
ooh this one. Basically it says, oh gosh, exposures all over the place, or when they take portraits, they took 5 pictures, and that was it.
Ooh.
Well, I've got over 50 to 100 pictures of the bride. So I didn't have much to choose from. So they basically, it was like, I went up to them like, overshoot. You need to overshoot.
Yeah. Oof.
Oh, gosh. So really, you have to like just tell them like, more, more, more is better there.
I mean, I guess that you definitely, I feel like you should always lay out the expectations ahead of time for things like that, like
Yes.
specific groomsmen shots that you get. And then, I get the group photos and the individuals and things like that. So definitely, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, that's no bueno.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
have had I have had a scenario where my second photographer, who was a very like professional, like well, like booking, higher end weddings. They worked for me for a day and I couldn't even use half of their images. So I
Oh,
did end
wow.
up, because their settings were just so far off that they were
Ew.
unusable. Like, I mean, I'm talking like way overexposed, grainy, like everything like that we're as a professional you're trained not to do. Somehow, like, I don't know how it happened or what was going on, but it was not a reflection of their work that they do for themselves. So it was just really disappointing. And I was like, I downloaded different types of software to try to salvage these photos, but at the end of the day, they were unsalvageable, and I just had to deliver like the ones that were.
That
So,
sucks.
so
Yeah.
it was like the groomsmen photos were like half of what I delivered for the bridesmaid photos,
Oh no.
and I had no second angles of anything.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah.
So,
It's
I
like
mean, we do what we can and hire the best that we can, but you know,
it's true. It's true. But yeah, just laying out those expectations ahead of time. Like
yeah,
and then even just like saying like this is what I need from you. But like you would think almost like a common sense piece would come in of like you're my second photographer. Like make sure you do it like just like you would as a primary photographer. Like
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I would like how I approach as a second photographer. Like somebody is paying me to capture their wedding day. Like,
mhm.
although I'm not leading the wedding day, I still need to act like I am one of the primary photographers for the day. I'm
Yeah.
just
Like
I have a
I'm gonna
different
be
role
going
that
home.
day.
Act like you're about to be going home and like using these photos to
Yeah,
edit and deliver to your client. Like they have to be good. But after that scenario, now, unless this person has worked with me multiple times, now I'm always like, hey, do you mind if I just look through the images real quick? Because if I have to redo, the groomsmen porch photos during the reception, I'm gonna do it just so I'm not delivering half.
right, right. You want it to feel
I
like a
check.
complete gallery.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
they learn, we learn. It's all a learning experience.
it really is. It really is. But just treat it like you are. What I like to even think of it is like when you're a second photographer, you have to think of yourself as like a primary photographer in just a different role of the day. Like you're part
Mhm.
of this team, but these are your responsibilities as the other professional photographer.
Yeah.
So, oh, this is a oh, this one stinks. Basically, they were gathering all the pictures during the dinner hour just to back them up at that point, and the photographer started downloading the pictures from their second, and they were all JPEG files. Oh,
Oh,
oh, those aren't going to turn out too good. You know what's wild is I actually, when my first like 4 years, I shot in JPEG. No joke.
I
Four
would say
years of doing.
the older school photographers still do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it was funny because the reason that I found out that I shouldn't have been shooting in JPEG is that I put up like a video of me going through the photos, and another photographer friend texted me, was like, "Hey, I noticed you're shooting in JPEG, and I just wanted to let you know nobody really does that." Like,
No.
and yeah, so like it was like wow, that's how it helped. But it is true. Like, make sure that your second photographers are shooting in the same format as you,
Yeah.
so that way there is consistency in the final result of the images, because you just
Yeah.
don't want less quality images.
And talking about consistency, like do you when you're on a wedding day, do you ask your photographer like or do you give them, hey, my settings right now are around here, like ballpark settings, so that, for the ceremony it's all pretty,
Yeah,
much the same.
yeah, I will if they are a newer second photographer.
Okay.
If it's somebody that I've seen their work in a way, and I could see that they shoot, like their editing is like clean and good, and like
Yeah.
I know that they probably know their settings well.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like if they are newer and like maybe it's trickier lighting inside or outside, I will ask them, be like, "Hey, what are you thinking you're going to use for your settings
Mhm.
in this situation?" Because yeah, it's so important to make sure that like you are not having something that's super overexposed or way too underexposed, or it's going to be very difficult to edit when it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be.
Yeah. Or even like once you start using Flash, if you're in a situation with Flash, like I feel like that's pretty key to kind of match that up too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't need half of the reception to be non-flash and half be
Mm.
flash, because I actually had a situation once where that happened, and basically what I had to do is, I used flash, and all the person that used all non-flash, I'd like, well, those are all going to be black and white because
Yes. Oh, that's that's a good way to do it because otherwise
yeah.
it'd be an editing nightmare.
Oh, it would have been, yeah, trying to match those photos, it wasn't possible. So
No, that would be impossible.
yeah, so yeah, and when I'm using flash, they have to use flash too.
Mhm.
Oh, this one's fun. They forgot to show up.
Oh,
Oh, that would hurt so bad.
that happened to one of my friends actually. She was just recently telling me about that. Well,
Oh
they
gosh.
yeah, they didn't show up and she ended up, she had a really nice couple, thankfully, that was understanding about it. But I mean, what would you do in that situation? I would feel like I'd have to cut the bride and groom a deal of some sort or like
Oh yeah.
throw in something extra because that is
Yep.
huge. Like you're taking away that security for them on their wedding day and you're taking away an additional amount of photos and angles that they'd get on
Yeah.
their wedding day. Like
You
that's
have
a
to go
huge
above and beyond at
disappointment.
that point. Yeah. You take full blame and then go above and beyond for them. Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I was in that situation, I would be like, I will refund you all of the money, and I'm
Mm.
also going to provide you like a professional fine art wedding album.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just something to show, like, I'm really sorry, and this is what I want to do for you because this happened.
Yeah.
Because
You
if
talk
you
to me
just give them
right.
back the money for the second photographer, they're gonna be like, well, that was kind of still low. Like, cheap, like that this is what we were expecting, this is what we wanted. It's almost like repairing emotional damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what can you do to like uplift that and go above and beyond? And I
Mhm.
actually listened to a podcast episode by Alex Hermosi that talked about this, and it was so good. He talked about an example of where, they waited for dinner for 3 hours, and he's like, there was no, you know they didn't refund us our money. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. So like, they never go back there again, and they never, recommend anybody to go there. But like,
Yeah.
then they went to this one hotel where they something happened with their reservation or something. But then they went above and beyond. They upgraded their room to like a nicer suite. They upgraded
Mhm.
their dinner reservations. They got him another dinner reservation, and it was because of that. He's like, I gave him a 5-star review. I recommend everyone to them, to this specific guy who was like the manager of the hotel, and he went above and beyond. And you have to take ownership for your actions.
We're in the service industry. Like,
Yep.
I know that photographers, like, it's also where, you can be pretty egotistical. Like, it's art, it's our art, things
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
we are working in the service industry. You are serving your couples, your clients, like, as best you can. And just like if you go out to dinner, I mean, I know that this is a higher, bill, but if you're going out to dinner and your food is crap, if you order a rare steak and you're served a very well done steak, you'd expect a refund or a brand new steak. And for a
Yeah.
wedding day, like, you know
You got to go above and beyond.
yeah, you do
Yep.
everything you can to make that right because you're in the service industry.
Yep. And
And if
sometimes,
you
even though it's not your fault, you still have to take the blame,
yeah.
because ultimately it's still representation of your business. Because you
Mhm.
could easily take a 1 to 3 star rating to a 5-star rating based on how you handle these situations too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, another
But
podcast for you, Taylor. There you go.
oh yeah. Well, so I would say, to wrap it up, like, second photographers, the most important thing to do is to communicate well with your primary photographer. Like, ask what is expected of you. I would check in to make sure that, like, when you show up to your wedding day, also you are going to be dressed well. I
Mhm.
heard a story from Lauren from the vendor table, who talked about how her second photographer like showed up in flip flops and like a t-shirt, like it was, and she's like, she just sent her home. So
Oh, yeah, I think I heard that one. Yeah, that was
yeah,
a good
yeah. And
one.
I was like, wow, I could not imagine. But
No.
everything that you do is a representation of the person you're working with. And I also think it's important for the primary photographer to lay out those expectations for the second
Mm.
photographer, because they might have worked with somebody else and just assume that's how they work. But you have to lay out those guidelines for your second photographer as well. But yeah, second photographers, take it as an opportunity to network, to build your portfolio in a way. But I
Mhm.
do want to ask about that. Like,
Oh, yes.
that's
That's
a
a
whole
whole
other
other.
piece. Shoot,
Yes.
we got to cover that. Dang. All right. So
Very
when
important.
when it comes to the portfolio side of a second photographer shooting your wedding, how do you approach that, McKayla?
Well, I have it in my contract that um they're more, and I always tell my second photographers, like, you're more than welcome to use these as portfolio builders. But give credit where credit's due.
Yes.
And if you're posting on Instagram, um this might be controversial, but if you're posting on Instagram, you you tag me because you were shooting for my business.
Yes.
So all you have to say is like, got while second shoot, or like, photos taken while second shooting for Cyrus Creative or TPI Photography, um and I totally understand that, like, second shooting for a lot of people is an opportunity to start getting into the wedding industry and building your portfolio, where you might not have, not everyone can just start shooting weddings. Like, that just doesn't
Right.
happen. People want to see your work. So I get that, and absolutely use those images, and but just give credit where credit's due. And that even extends into your Instagram stories.
Yes.
um, I see this a lot, and I don't know, everyone probably has different viewpoints on this, but if you're second shooting a wedding, and it's not your own wedding, like, obviously you're second shooting, it's not your own wedding, and you're posting on your story, you write second shooting for so and so. Like, don't
Yep.
try to pretend like this is your wedding day and tag vendors, tag the couple, never tag the couple. Oh my gosh.
That is
Don't
it
even
for.
follow the couple.
Don't. Yeah. Don't. If,
Don't seek them out ever. That's
no.
probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's just incredibly disrespectful to the
Mhm.
primary, and it's going to lead you to not being able to have other opportunities, because someone may ask you, or the lead photographer you were working with, like, hey, how was your experience with so and so? I was thinking about asking them to be my second. Like, well, they did a good job. However, they disrespected the contract. They broke the contract from what it said. And so, like, with that in mind, like, that could ruin that relationship.
Yeah.
So it's so true. Yeah, I'm the same way where, like, I love to be able to support other photographers who shoot with me as an opportunity for to build their portfolio, to build their experience. But I think that transparency and honesty is so important
Mhm.
to where they are tagging us in those posts and those stories anywhere. And also when they are showing that work, make sure you're saying, like, this is work from shooting a wedding with somebody else. And actually, to bring back the vendor table people, Michael actually talked about this piece where he's like, because I was honest and transparent and showed that I could still just do good work even though I was second shooting, I got my first wedding because of that. And it just went and it
Yeah.
built and built and built because I just showed that I can create great work even though I was working for somebody else at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how it all starts. It's just showing the respect piece in the beginning. There's so much that goes into booking the lead photographer, booking that wedding and building the relationship with the couple ahead of time. You can't just swoop in and take credit, you know?
Nope. Because it's
And
not your booking.
yeah, exactly. And if you're tagging vendors, I don't know, you extend on how you feel about this, but I feel like if you're posting and then tagging vendors and then they're
Mhm.
sharing your story, they're sharing your thing, you're kind of like advertising your business through that.
Yeah, that one is definitely tricky. Because I feel like, I wonder if, because as long as, like, they're tagging me as like they were the second, like they were the second photographer and like I shot
Okay.
for this one, like, I guess I'm a little bit more lenient there. But as long as, like, because if somebody's gonna click on it and they read through the description, they say, like, oh, they shot for so and so, so this it was actually that photographer that booked that wedding.
So if they're
Um,
tagging you, yeah. So I guess that goes back into like, as long as it says like in big letter, not like teeny tiny
Not the fine
little on
print
the
at the bottom.
bottom. Yeah. No, as long as you're obvious, your second shooting for so and so, this is their
Yep.
wedding,
Oh yeah.
then that's cool. But
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
I
I've had
absolutely
second
agree.
photographers not tag me at all, but then the venue shared their story, and then it's like, whose wedding was that? I mean,
Stick
not
to the
that
heart.
I'm not like butthurt
Yeah.
about it, but it's
It's
just it's just
it's
respect.
yeah, that's what it comes down to, is respect the
Mhm.
person that you shot for. They gave you the opportunity to shoot with them on a very important day. Like, I always say to quit my couples, I am so honored you chose me
Yeah.
because this is such an important day. And like I tell them that, like, repeatedly. Almost like I
Same.
want
I
them to
really do.
know.
Like every
Yeah.
email.
Every
Every
email. Yeah,
single
I'm so
email.
honored. I'm so honored.
It's a
But yeah.
privilege. I'm so honored.
I did it my thank you notes, like,
Yeah.
because it is a big day.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I always like to make sure, like, they have that opportunity to have a portfolio to build, but it's also just be respectful in the end and make sure you're just doing the right thing, because it really does make a difference and it can provide more opportunities for you
Hmm.
as a second photographer.
Yeah.
I had another thing I was going to say in regards to this stuff, and I totally totally lost it. Damn it. Uh, yeah, it's gone.
Oh, it's all
It
right.
was such a good one too, and
How do you
it's
feel about like the whole, I mean, talking about like you never, obviously you never reach out to if you're a second photographer, you don't reach out to the couple. You
yeah.
never, I have had another photographer friend say that their second photographer, like the couple ended up following them on Instagram. So then she followed them back. Um, and then they were like, hey, share anything that, because they knew that she'd be editing, share anything with us that you end up editing. We'd love to see it. And so she did, she like created her own little online gallery for them and sent it.
Oh no! Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's that. Don't be stupid.
I know that's
Like,
just that's just that should be common sense, but clearly it's
it's very well lacked. Yeah, like, in the end, like, I guess, like, the main point of being a second photographer is to be respectful and professional for the person you're working for the lead photographer, in
mm,
all realms of the whole experience. Like, your main goal is to, like, basically be guided and directed by what the primary photographer tells you to do. And at the end of the wedding, you're done. Like that's really the end of your contracted services.
Yeah.
Is like you are there to shoot the wedding with them. And after that, like, as long as the primary photographer gives you permission to post stuff and make sure you're tagging them. Oh, I remember what it was. I commented on this thing somebody posted about like, what are your thoughts on sharing photos with second photographers and letting them post from the wedding that they shot with you? And I shared my insight, and then some guy commented on my thing and said something like, no, they should be able to share their images freely. Like they have full right and creative right to all the pictures they take. I'm like, well, you're wrong. It is
No.
my images, my wedding, my booking under
They're,
contracted under
yeah, they're
TPI
contracted
photography.
through you. They're
Yeah,
your
so
images.
I have full copyright
Yeah.
ownership over those photos. So yeah, I shut that down real quick.
And you always wait. The second photographer, the reason you have to ask is because you always have to wait until they've delivered, the lead photographer's delivered the full gallery. Like,
Right. And even
you don't
wait
want
to
to
like
risk.
see if the main photographer is going to post pictures first
Yeah.
too. Like don't post any until at least the lead photographer posts first
Hmm.
or you get permission to do so.
Yes.
Because we don't post all weddings just because of time.
Time just gets away
But
from
like,
you.
don't be the first person to post about their wedding pictures as a second photographer unless given permission as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know this was a lot that we unraveled in under like just all about second photographers. Just
We could keep going too, but
oh, we
I'm
could.
I'm trying to refrain.
And I was like, do we keep it under 50 minutes today? We're
There's a
doing good.
million points that I took notes on that I was like, oh, you touch on this and this and this. Maybe a quarter of them.
Yeah. Is there any other final ones you're like, I just need to talk about?
I don't know. I don't know. I think we
'Cause,
pretty much the gist of everything we went through.
yeah,
But
like the important
yeah,
pieces.
I mean, just take it as a learning experience. This being a second photographer, even if they haven't been in the industry as long as you. I love. I can learn something from anyone that's in the
Absolutely.
wedding industry.
Yep.
I don't care if they've only been doing it a year. There's something I can take away from every wedding. And that's why I love second shooting. I'm like, "Oh, I love the way they handled that situation," or "I love the way the flow of this, the way they did this." And there's something you can learn in every situation, and it's just so much fun to get creative.
Right. You get paid and there's so much value to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just have an open mind. Like, and it's okay if you don't think everything that they did was something that you do. Like we have our own creative and
Mhm.
professional flow. But in the end, I think the most important thing is to be for professional, communicative, and just respectful. Like
Yeah.
I think those are the three main words that are so important, and just be open to talking with the primary photographer and be like, hey, what do you expect out of me? If they haven't really told you anything, what do you expect out of me? Because that shows initiative and that shows like you really care. So
Mhm.
go above and beyond as a second photographer, especially if it's your first like few times, to get into the industry and just to show that you are excited and ready for this. But continuously just show the level of professionalism that you need to like, because in the end, like it's just going to create so many great networks for you as well
Yeah.
if you want longevity in this industry.
Yeah. And actually, I want to add one more thing. If you're unsure of the way that photographer might handle groomsmen photos or any specific situation that you're going to be thrown into, just ask them to view one of their full galleries. I love to do
That's
that. Like,
good.
hey,
Yeah.
Taylor, I'm going to be working with you this weekend. I'd love to get a full gallery from you, one of your full edited galleries, so I can see like your go-to shots for this or something like that, you know?
Yeah, that is such a good point. That is so good because then you can really see what the flow of a whole wedding day looks like, and
Hmm.
even just a couple of different examples, and maybe even send them one that's like more specifically geared toward the type of wedding that you're going to photograph.
Yeah.
So that way they really can see the flow. But yeah, that is a really good point. Just share a full gallery with a second, so they can really see like what the style is and like for each of those moments of the day, especially if you're going to be taking the lead in, for
Yeah.
example, the groomsmen photos or maybe some of the detail photos or so on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wow, that was a
Woo!
lot. Gotta catch my breath over here. McKaylah, seriously, this was so much fun, and thank you for just being on this episode with me, just to talk about second shooters, the importance of it, and just how to like create a great experience for your couple by working with them well.
Absolutely. It was an honor. It was a privilege, Taylor, to be on this.
Get out of here.
It
I
was a
don't know how
lot.
to if to take that kindly or sarcastically.
No, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
of
me.
course. Thank you everybody for listening to this extra special episode, and I will see you all next week.